Hello, my name is Philippe Girard, a professor in the history department at McNeese State University.
And I'm Amber Hale. I'm from the biology department at McNeese. Welcome to Your Grandma Rocks, where we explore the lives of famous women in history.
Welcome and bienvenue à nos amis francophones. Vous écoutez la radio de l'Université McNeese.
On the program today, music, science, and history as we retrace the life of a remarkable woman. She helped discover the fission of uranium, paving the way for two of the biggest innovations of the 20th century, the atomic bomb and the nuclear reactor.
Albert Einstein even compared her to Marie Curie.
And she escaped from Hitler.
Her name was Lise Meitner.
Along the way, we'll sample songs from Germany, where she spent much of her career, and from Sweden, where she went into exile after fleeing from Nazi Germany.
We'll start with a recent song, Nur ein Wort, by the German band Wir sind Eltern. Bonjour and welcome back to Your Grandma Rocks. We just listened to the song Just One Word by the German band We Are Heroes. That song came out in 2005. Je m'appelle Philippe Girard.
And I'm Amber Hale. Today we're exploring the life of the German scientist Lise Meitner.
Who was actually from Austria originally. She was born in 1878 in the great city of Vienna.
And she came from a very big Jewish family. She had 7 siblings in all.
But her Jewish background played a limited role in her life. She got baptized in 1908 and she became a Lutheran.
Which of course did not prevent her from being threatened by Hitler later on.
Correct. Under the Nuremberg laws, only your racial ancestry mattered.
As a little girl, science was more important to Lise than her religion. She would study things like reflection of light on an oil slick and then write her observations on a notebook that she kept under her pillow.
You're also a female scientist, Amber. Did your interest in science begin when you were just a little girl too?
Absolutely. I cannot remember a time when I wasn't fascinated by the natural world.
Educational opportunities in the scientific fields were closed to women at the time. Luckily, Meitner had supportive parents who paid for private tutors so that she could make progress in her education anyway.
It's stories like this that make me realize how much progress we've made in the past 100 years. Now we're trying to encourage young women to get into science, not turn them away from it.
And that was not just Lise Meitner. We did a show on Marie Curie, and she too was prevented from studying science when she grew up in Russian-occupied Poland just around the same time.
Meitner finally managed to be admitted to the University of Vienna, where she obtained her doctorate in physics in 1905. She was only the second woman in Vienna to do so.
Her other love was mathematics, and for a long time she hesitated between a degree in math and one in physics.
So she also attended all the lectures required for the math degree, just in case she changed her mind. She'd sit on the first row and take notes more diligently than everyone, even though she was not even registered in the course.
That's the kind of student I would like to have in my classroom.
Me too. But please, students, officially register. We need the tuition money.
Either that or she could have done what Marie Curie did at the Sorbonne. Curie got a degree in physics in just 2 years and then a degree in math 1 year later.
These early female scientists faced incredible obstacles along the way, but they persevered. They weren't the kind of students that find just any excuse to skip class.
Indeed. Let's take our second musical break.
We thought about listening to some early songs by the Beatles because early in their career they toured Germany and sang a number of their early hits in German.
Unfortunately, we weren't able to find a recording of the Beatles singing in German. None that was legit, at least. So I decided to go the other way with a German band singing in English. You may remember the band Fool's Garden. They had their moment in the sun in the 1990s.
Yes, and they actually sound quite a bit like the Beatles if I remember well.
Their biggest hit was Lemon Tree from 1995.
I'm sitting here in the boring room. It's just another rainy Sunday afternoon. I'm wasting my time, I got nothing to do. I'm hanging around, I'm waiting for you, but nothing ever happens. And I wonder, I'm driving around in my car. I'm driving too fast, I'm driving too far. I'd like to change my point of view. I feel so lonely, I'm waiting for you, but nothing ever happens. And I wonder how, I wonder why. Yesterday you told me about the blue, blue sky, and all that I can see is just a yellow lemon tree. I'm turning my head up and down. I'm turning, 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 turning around, and all that I can see is just another lemon tree. Sing da 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 dee da 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 dee da 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 dee dee da. I'm sitting here, I miss the power. I'd like to go out, taking a shower, but there's a heavy cloud inside my head. I feel so tired, put myself into bed. Well, nothing ever happens, and I wonder. Isolation is not good for me. Isolation, I don't want to sit on a lemon tree. I'm stepping around in the desert of joy. Baby, anyhow I'll get another toy, and everything will happen. And you wonder, I wonder how, I wonder why. Yesterday you told me about the blue, blue sky, and all that I can see is just another lemon tree. I'm turning my head up and down. I'm turning, 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 turning around. And all that I can see is just a yellow lemon tree. And I wonder, I wonder how, I wonder why. Yesterday you told me about the blue, blue sky. And all that I can see, and all that I can see, and all that I can see is just a yellow lemon tree.
Welcome back. I'm Amber Hale, co-host of Your Grandma Rocks, your favorite women's history show on KBYS. We just listened to the song Lemon Tree by Fool's Garden, a German clone of the Beatles.
Et je suis Philippe Girard. Vous écoutez la radio de l'Université McNeese.
Today we're talking about the scientist Lise Meitner.
After getting her doctorate in physics in Vienna, she was invited by Max Planck to work at the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute in Berlin.
And that was a very big deal. Max Planck is a giant in the field of physics.
He was a pioneer of quantum mechanics, which studies the properties of matter at the atomic and subatomic level.
Planck had rejected every female applicant before, but he was so impressed with Meitner that he made an exception just for her.
In layman's terms, can you explain to us some of her early work?
She began by studying how beams of alpha particles interact with various materials. She noted that the scattering effect was greater when the beams hit heavier elements. Those findings were the first steps in figuring out the internal structures of the atom, with the nucleus made of protons and neutrons, and the electrons that orbit around the outside.
I remember learning about that in science class, but I was told that Ernest Rutherford was the one who made that discovery.
He did, but he used those early findings by Meitner. Unfortunately, that was not the last time she did not get proper credit for her discoveries.
She also had a hard time getting a proper job. At the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute in Berlin, she was paired up with a chemist named Otto Hahn. They worked together as equals, but officially she was just his, quote, guest in the lab.
Finally, she was offered a job as an associate professor in Prague, and that forced her institute in Berlin to give her a proper position. By that point, she was already 35.
It was around that time that World War I broke out in Europe.
Meitner volunteered to serve as a nurse in the war. She worked with X-ray machines to help diagnose the wounds of injured soldiers.
X-rays had just been invented thanks to all the new discoveries on radiation and the atom by Meitner and other scientists.
One of these scientists was Marie Curie. Interestingly, she also served as a nurse and X-ray technician during World War I.
Though, of course, she served on the other side of the war since she was a French citizen back then.
World War I was a difficult experience for Meitner. She worked in close contact with the wounded and was exposed to all of the horrors of war.
That's the irony of her career. Her work eventually led to the development of an even more powerful bomb, the atomic bomb, and yet she was anti-war.
We need to listen to that famous anti-war German song.
99 Luftballon?
Yes, it's one of the most famous German songs of all time, and it fits perfectly well with today's theme.
Bonjour à tous, and welcome back to Your Grandma Rocks on KBYS. This was 99 Red Balloons by the German band Nena. The song came out in 1983. I'm Philippe Girard.
And I'm Amber Hale. Today we're covering the Lise Meitner, an Austrian-German scientist who did important work on the structure of the atom before serving as an X-ray nurse in World War I.
After that war, she resumed her research in Berlin. In 1922, she discovered the Auger effect. What is that?
It means that when an electron located close to the nucleus of an atom gets kicked out by a collision, another electron from the outer shell, the higher energy electron, swoops in and takes its place. That process results in the release of some energy from the atom.
Why is it called the Auger effect then if she discovered it?
Because a French scientist named Pierre Auger discovered it independently a year later, and the effect was named after him.
A year later? That doesn't seem fair.
I think we're starting to see a pattern develop here. Getting recognition for her work was not a given.
On the plus side, she was promoted to full professor of physics, which was the first time that a woman had earned that position in Germany. Later, she became the head of the physics department.
By that point, she was starting to be well known outside of Berlin.
Einstein called her the German Marie Curie.
She also collaborated with a scientist named James Chadwick in Britain. He hit a roadblock in his research, so she sent him some polonium to help out.
Let me guess, he discovered something important and he got all the credit for it.
Exactly. With Meitner's help, he discovered the neutron, which is one of the particles that form the nucleus of the atom.
By then, scientists had a good idea how an atom is composed. Protons and neutrons in the nucleus, plus a cloud of electrons orbiting around it.
The more protons, the bigger the atom. You start with small atoms with 1 or 2 protons like hydrogen and helium.
These are the ones at the top of the table of elements.
Then the atoms get progressively bigger as you go down the table, all the way to uranium, with atomic number 92, which is the heaviest element you can commonly find in nature.
Can't you just add more protons and get even bigger elements?
Well, that was the big question in the 1920s and 1930s. Many scientists worked on that, including the team of Otto Hahn and Lisa Meitner in Germany.
We'll get to that in a minute. First, we're going to listen to the greatest German star of the interwar period.
Are you talking about Marlene Dietrich?
Yes, we'll listen to her most famous song, Lili Marleen, which she recorded in 1944. It's a German song, but it was recorded for the benefit of the U.S. Army, which broadcast it on the radio during World War II to appeal to the German soldiers fighting for Hitler in World War II.
Vor der Kaserne, vor dem großen Tor, steht eine Laterne und steht sie noch davor. Dort wollen wir uns wiedersehen, bei der Laterne wollen wir stehen, wie einst Lili Marleen, wie einst Lili Marleen. Unsere beiden Schatten sahen wie einer aus, dass wir lieb uns hatten, das sah man gleich daraus. Und alle Leute sollen es sehen, wenn wir bei der Laterne stehen, wie einst Lili Marleen, wie einst Lili Marleen. Deine Schritte kennt sie, deinen schönen Gang. Alle Abend brennt sie, doch mich vergaß sie lang. Und sollte mir ein Leid geschehen, wer wird bei der Laterne stehen? Mit dir, Lili Marleen, mit dir, Lili Marleen. Aus dem stillen Raume, aus der Erde Grund, hebt sich wie im Traume dein verliebter Mund. Wenn sich die späten Nebel drehen, wer wird bei der Laterne stehen? Mit dir, Lili Marleen, mit dir, Lili Marleen. Wenn sich die späten Nebel drehen, wer wird bei der Laterne stehen? Mit dir, Lili Marleen, mit dir, Lili Marleen.
This was Lili Marleen by Marlene Dietrichs. You're listening to Your Grandma Rocks on KBYS. I'm Amber Hale.
Et je suis Philippe Girard. Today we are retracing the life of Lisa Meitner, who worked as a chemist and as a physicist in 1930s Berlin, right when this song was first written.
That would be the time when Hitler came to power, right?
Right, he became chancellor in 1933. That did not help German science because many scientists were persecuted as Jews or fled the country in protest.
And that's how Einstein came to the U.S.
Lisa Meitner was of Jewish ancestry, but initially she could stay in Germany because she had an Austrian passport. But then in 1938, Hitler annexed Austria, and she could not expect any special treatment anymore.
She was not an active opponent of Hitler, but she did not want to collaborate with his regime either, so she fled to the Netherlands.
With just 10 Reichsmarks in her pocket, she made it across the border and eventually settled in neutral Sweden.
Fleeing Berlin was heartbreaking for her because she was so very close to a major breakthrough on uranium.
Her collaborators Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann remained in Germany and continued the work. They would do the experiments, and Otto Hahn would then write to Meitner in Sweden to get her advice on the results that he was getting in the lab.
Hahn and Streismann were good chemists and were very, very good at doing the experiments and identifying the elements that showed up in their test tubes as results, but they had a harder time with the theoretical aspects.
And that's where Lisa Meitner, with her doctorate in physics, could help.
Hahn wrote to her that after bombarding a very big atom like uranium with small particles like neutrons, he would get two smaller elements, barium and krypton, and a lot of energy would also be released.
She immediately understood what that meant. They had split the atom.
That's huge. They had discovered nuclear fission.
Meitner also explained why so much energy was released. During the reaction, a bit of mass was destroyed and transformed into pure energy.
That's the famous equation by Einstein, E equals mc squared, where E stands for energy, m stands for mass, and c is a huge number that's a constant. It means energy and mass are essentially the same thing, and you can transform a tiny bit of mass into a huge amount of energy.
That was a key discovery. By splitting uranium in significant quantities, you could release enough energy for an incredibly powerful bomb.
Or you could control the chain reaction at a safe level, in which case you would get a nuclear-powered reactor and produce cheap, plentiful electricity.
This was one of the most significant discoveries of the 20th century. She truly was the German Marie Curie.
Curie got 2 Nobel Prizes for her work. How many did Meitner get?
I'll let you guess for a bit. Before that, one more song. This time, we're headed for Sweden, where Meitner lived after leaving Germany.
I know you love disco. I guess we're going to listen to some ABBA, right?
That would have been too obvious. I chose to go with another Swedish pop group, Ace of Base.
She leads a lonely life. She leads a lonely life. When she woke up late in the morning light and the day had just begun, she opened up her eyes and thought, oh, what a morning. It's not a day for what? It's a day for catching time. Just lying on the beach and having fun. She's going to get you. All that she wants is another baby. She's gone tomorrow, boy. All that she wants is another baby. Yeah. All that she wants is another baby. She's gone tomorrow, boy. All that she wants is another baby. Yeah. So if you are inside and the day is right, she's a hunter, you're the fox. A gentle voice that talks to you won't talk forever. It is a night for passion, till the morning rings goodbye. Beware of what is flashing in her eyes. She's going to get ya. All that she wants is another baby. She's gone tomorrow, boy. All that she wants is another baby. Yeah. All that she wants is another baby. She's gone tomorrow, boy. All that she wants is another baby. Yeah. All that she wants is another baby. She's gone tomorrow, boy. All that she wants is another baby. Yeah. All that she wants is another baby. She's gone tomorrow, boy. All that she wants is another baby. Yeah.
Bienvenue à tous, je m'appelle Philippe Girard.
And I'm Amber Hale. This was All That She Wants by the Swedish group Ace of Base. You're listening to Your Grandma Rocks on KBYS, a show about famous women from centuries past.
Today we're retracing the life of Lise Meitner. Before our break, we saw how she and her colleagues Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann discovered how to split the atom.
That kind of work was worthy of a Nobel. And sure enough, in 1944, the Nobel Committee awarded a Nobel Prize in Chemistry, but only to Otto Hahn.
Can this prize be shared between different people?
Of course it can. It happens all the time.
So why did the Nobel Committee only pick Hahn?
Well, for one thing, we've seen how Meitner struggled to get recognition as a female scientist for a good deal of her life.
Strassmann and Meitner also paid the prize for opposing Hitler. Otto Hahn chose to stay in his lab in Berlin, so he got all the credit for what had been a joint effort in the first place.
Also, the experts who picked the Nobel Prize for Chemistry were all chemists, so they failed to recognize how important Meitner's contribution had been with the understanding of physics involved in describing nuclear fission.
The Nobel Committee can get things very wrong sometimes. Einstein never got a prize for discovering the theory of relativity, though he got recognized for a much less important discovery that he made on the photoelectric effect.
Meitner was nominated 10 times for the Nobel Prize over the years, but she never got it.
Do you think that they will ever correct that mistake?
Not a chance. You have to be alive to receive a Nobel.
She did get some recognition when element 109 was named after her, which is a huge honor, even bigger than Nobel Prize in some ways, because there are only so many elements that you can name, so that honor is reserved for only the greatest scientists like Curie, Newton, and Einstein.
In the meantime, Meitner got back to work. After the discovery of nuclear fission, Einstein wrote to President Roosevelt to urge him to develop a nuclear bomb before Hitler did. That became the Manhattan Project.
Meitner was asked to join the Manhattan Project, but she refused.
She explained that she had seen enough violence in World War I and that she didn't want anything to do with the bomb.
Instead, she helped Sweden develop the nuclear power reactor for civilian purposes.
She became a Swedish citizen in 1949. Then she moved to Britain after her retirement.
And that's where she died in 1968 at age 89.
At least she didn't die prematurely of cancer like Marie Curie.
Yes.
What a life. We're so glad we could share it with you. This program was funded by a Juliet Hardner Grant for Women in the Humanities. For more information on how to finance fellowships at McNeese, contact the Foundation at 337-475-5588.
This program was also sponsored by the History Department at McNeese. To apply for a degree in history or any other field, contact the McNeese Admissions Office at 337-475-5504.
Thank you and goodbye.
Merci et au revoir.